Welcome, everybody, to the first of 3 Substack lives in a row. This is a series that really should have some name, but it doesn't. Today, I'm going to be talking with Brian Tyler Cohen. Man, where to start? Is it okay, Brian, if I start with the most obvious question?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay.
What are we looking at? What could it possibly be today?
James Earl Ray, Mark David Chapman, Lee Harvey Oswald, Brian Tyler Cohen. Is it not a little risque to go
Yeah,
with the 3 names?
I knew this was coming. I'm not gonna lie and say that I didn't know this was coming. The real reason that I do the 3 name thing is because I was initially out in Los Angeles because I was acting. I was in the entertainment industry, and when you sign up on IMDb, which is the Internet Movie Database, there were 16 other Brian Cohens, and I was like, I can't be the 17th Brian Cohen and hope that anybody can find me on IMDb. So I got to just use my middle name. And now I'm in an industry where people with 3 names are generally serial killers, and so this is just how it goes.
Oh man, no, well, we got an answer to that, but in all seriousness, obviously that this bill is a big thing today,
And
and I
and
don't
because
even,
I and because and because I'm a prolific serial killer also,
right,
you know. So
which we'll find out about in like the third. You've gone from
yeah,
acting to politics to eventually to
that's right.
that.
My third act. Yeah, exactly.
So, with the bill, things are moving so quickly. You and I talking about the provisions of the bill, it's almost like, listen, I don't know that that's the most interesting thing to focus on, but what might be really interesting is I'm sensing something palpably different right now in terms of the role that independent media like us is playing in telling people about what's happening with this bill. And here's what I mean. As impactful as this bill is going to be, the cuts, the way it'll affect people's lives, all that stuff. A lot of people are just busy with their lives and they're not engaged in the way of like, let me call the funders of the members of the Senate that are borderline, or let me tell my family about what's going on. I'm getting the sense that with all of the progressive independent producers doing all the stuff that we're doing, including the people who are like first to TikTok and not beyond us, we seem to be breaking through into getting floods of phone calls to senators' offices, calls to funders, like something different seems to be happening. I don't know if you agree.
Yeah, and I think the biggest reason is because there feels like when we regularly get our news from legacy media, there isn't. First of all, they're not going to offer up calls to action because that's not what they do, and that's not part of. These are not activists. These are just news people, often to a fault, focused on neutrality. But I think too there is a sense with independent creators that we're in this as well, and so if we ask, for example, hey, it's important to call your senator because the vote is happening right now. These are just your peers asking you to do something that they themselves are doing. I mean, when I ask people to call their senator, I believe the switchboard is 202, is it 224-3121? I mean, it's because I've called. You know what I mean? And so this is the first time in political media where folks are actually getting news from other people who have a vested interest in actually seeing a virtuous process play out, which is to stop this bill that's going to cut Medicaid, that's going to cut food stamps, that's going to explode the deficit. And so that's the difference there is you're not going to watch CNN or MSNBC and they're going to say, hey, make sure to call your senators at the end of this segment. They're going to say, hey, first of all, they're not going to do that. And second of all, they're probably going to use some sanitized language like, feud erupts as both sides discuss the virtues and merits of making sure that this bill gets passed or doesn't get passed.
I think this is one of the interesting differences about what we do and what happens on some of the legacy networks. And you and I have talked about this before when we've seen people do the transition from corporate to independent media, which is some people just want the sanitized thing, right? They want the chyron at the bottom that goes 5-minute debate as to whether climate change is real. Each side gets 2.5 minutes with some anchor that you don't relate to in any way.
Right.
There are people that want to be watching more activisty types. I don't know that I call myself an activist per se, but it's definitely activist media in the sense of the relationship is more direct. And we're saying, hey, we're in this with you. We're not giving you this on the one hand, on the other hand thing. Now, you might just disagree with our conclusions, which is fine, and then we debate them. But I think that there is something different about this whole ecosystem and the connection where we have a shared goal here. Let's figure out how to work towards it.
Yeah, I mean that's lending itself to the point that I made before, which is this sense that like these are regular people. Like I didn't get my start working on some network somewhere. You didn't get your start working on some network somewhere, and so we have a vested interest in. We're doing this because you want to see something good happen. I mean, I'm in this because like the things that fuel me are to make sure that we can combat climate change, right? To make sure that as many people as have healthcare as possible. To make sure there are as few guns on the streets, or that they are as difficult to procure as possible, and on and on. And so that's my driving force in doing this. It is not to like make sure that somebody gets some sanitized version of breaking news, or that I can keep both sides. I don't care about both sides. Like I'm in this because I want to see some things. I want to see aspects of our agenda that I believe in get passed, and so that's kind of my North Star in all of this. I mean, really the reason that I do all of this is because like I've thought about this a lot, and and the thing I think that drives me is like we are here for but a fleeting moment. 75 years, 80 years, whatever it may be. I want to see people live with as much dignity uh, live with as much dignity as they possibly can in that short amount of time. And so whatever I can do to make that more viable, then that's going to be what drives every decision that I make. And so I don't know if you want to call it activist journalism, or just some basic sense of humanity, but that's I think how I think about everything.
Sometimes it's important kind of to be a little cagey and not to show all your cards in some places. But one thing that I've been really honest with my audience about is I have concern that this time around, as compared to Trump's first term, 2017 to 2021, that we are much more on the radar of this administration. I know for a fact that there are staffers in this White House that pay attention to what you and I are doing. And we've seen the encroachment upon the space we exist in as it grows. How concerned are you, I guess, on a personal level and for the movement? Because it's also not just about any of us individuals, but about the movement and the billions of views in the aggregate that are being accumulated here. That as you get more successful, you also become more of a target.
Yeah. So I think that there's another element to that, and that is as you become more successful, you become more of a target. But as you continue to grow, you actually become more and more difficult for them to be able to quash dissent from, to silence. And so I think that there is a vested interest in once you've started to make sure that you keep going all the way, because it's going to be a hell of a lot more difficult to take away somebody's social media feed. The more subscribers, the more followers they have, the bigger their voice is. And so like, for somebody like me, I'm in it, so you might as well just go to the end zone with it, right? In terms of personal risk, I have thought about this a lot, and I thought about it mostly in the lead up to the election. And there was a lot of, I spoke with my family a lot about it. There was, I was really worried about it. And I think now that's just kind of, I think that's kind of subsided in deference to just using the platform that I'm lucky enough to have to make sure to reach as many people and inform them on what's going on while I can. Like, do I think that that there is inherent risk in doing this from the administration? Absolutely. And from, the crazy people who are going to take up arms on behalf of this administration? Absolutely. And so there are things that I have to do that I won't talk about publicly, because I think it's probably better just to keep what steps I take for my privacy and security to myself. But and the irony about that too is I can't really talk about it publicly. I mean, you and I have spoken about it privately, but I can't really talk about it publicly, because the more you talk about it, the more you kind of let the bad actors know that it impacts you. And so
Yes.
there's this weird disincentivization where yes, it happens, and I kind of like, even if something especially bad happened, which luckily hasn't, but if it did, that would that would show, like, if somebody showed up at my house with a weapon or something like that, like what happened in Minnesota, if I spoke about this, that would tell other people, like, hey, this is something this is what works, right? And
Right.
so you don't want to see copycat attacks or anything like that. And so it's this weird thing where yes, it might happen, and you feel a need to talk about it because it's reflective of all of the danger of the moment that we're living in, and it should be. I mean, it's so depraved and disgusting, but that's exactly the thing that you have to kind of keep to yourself, or keep to your circle of people. And so, look, does it worry me, and does it worry my family? Of course it does, but I think at this point, you know, whether it's a blessing or a curse that we're in this job, we are in this job, and so you just gotta kind of, the way I think about it is just I just gotta keep going, because there's not that many of us who have especially large platforms on social media, and so if you have it, then use it to its fullest extent.
Yeah, I've had situations where after a particularly scary incident, like when Don Jr. targeted me on Twitter, for example,
Yeah,
some people will say, dude, you should just quit. And the thing that's tough is I explain to them, even if I were open to doing that, and even if I did it today, do you think the problem goes away if I quit today when there's
yeah.
40,000 videos online of me talking about all this stuff? And so I think to your point, we're in it right now. And I think it's a critical time to be in it, and just to try to be as effective as possible.
Yeah, and that's it. I mean, like, my whole goal, and we've spoken about this as well, is to build up independent progressive media as much as we can, because I don't want, there to only be a few large accounts on YouTube. I don't want there to only, I mean, I don't want there to only be a few large accounts on TikTok. We need to flood the zone, and this way also it does help us, because then all of the attention isn't trained on just a few people. Like, I want there to be thousands and thousands of people. I want it to be decentralized. I want it to be very democratized. This way, there's not just a few large creators who get the attention, and get the bad attention as well. That it really does feel like everybody.
When you interviewed me about my book, I guess it's been over 3 months ago at this
Yeah,
point. One of the things you asked me was sort of like my view as to whether I think Democrats kind of like get what happened in 24. Is there a plan? Is there some path to securing power again in order to pass bills? And I was sort of like shaky on it. So 3 months have gone by.
yeah.
You and I, in the last couple months, have talked to a lot of governors, senators, members of the House of Representatives. I want to get your view on where you think the strategy is right now. I've been unvarnished with my audience, which is, I sit down with whoever, Cory Booker, and then it was Amy Klobuchar, Andy Bashir. Individually, we're dealing with smart people who I believe have the best intentions and who really do want to pass bills that are going to be better for people. Cool. Is there a unified plan that actually explains how to defeat those in power right now, President, House, Senate? I can't say that I feel that there is a unified plan that I could coherently go to people who are not paying attention and go, no, guys, listen, this is the time to get involved. Here's the unified plan. I'm not seeing it right now. I wonder whether you see it.
No, I don't think I see a plan. I don't think I see an affirmative plan for the Democrats to go out in 26 and 28 and say, here's why you should vote for us, other than we are not, look, there's clearly something in the anti-Trump, anti-Republican thing. After all, Republicans have made an entire career in attacking Democrats, making Democrats into boogeymen. But I think right now it very much feels like, and this isn't a knock on them specifically right now, because I think while Republicans are trying to pass a budget bill that's going to strip healthcare away from 14 million Americans, and food assistance away to the tune of $300 billion, and explode the deficit by $3 trillion, I think that there is enough right here in this specific moment to be able to say, we have to stop this. Look what they're trying to do. Look how they're trying to strip your healthcare away. Healthcare away. Look how they're trying to take away your critical lifelines. But I also don't see an affirmative plan moving forward. I don't have some like Trump came out, and he's good at selling his bullshit proposals. He's not gonna,
Oh, yeah.
like he claimed that he was gonna lower housing costs and food costs and rent costs and egg costs. Hasn't done any of that, but that doesn't matter. Hasn't done any of that, but that doesn't matter because he's already in power. But at least he had some affirmative plan. Uh, Notwithstanding the fact that it was a complete bill of goods, I don't think that Democrats have that right now. We still have time until the midterms roll around, but it does feel like we are still an anti-Trump, anti-Republican party. And again, that might be enough to get us through an election where there will be, firmly believe that there's going to be a backlash to what Republicans are doing right now. Look, the last time they went after healthcare was in 2017, tried to strip away the ACA, and Democrats won the House by the biggest margin in modern American history. So can we win on an anti-Trump, anti-Republican platform? Of course we can, but we can't just be the party that is the lesser of two evils. We can't just be the party that isn't going to be as depraved as Republicans. I think that we need an affirmative message. Bernie and AOC are garnering a ton of attention across the country because they're very clear about what they want. And it doesn't have to be a progressive thing. It can be, whatever from wherever you lie on the ideological spectrum, because I know that there are folks in this country who still align with Democrats who are more moderate. And I know that of course there are folks who are super progressive and want $30 minimum wage, whatever it may be. But you need to present an affirmative vision that isn't just anti-Trump, anti-Republican, if we want any hope of making sure that we don't only win elections when the other guys are absolutely abhorrent.
Yeah. One of the things that worries me, and I'm curious to see your thoughts, is I worry that there is a wing of the movement, our movement, for whom no one is left enough. And I'll give you two examples, which are your examples, Bernie and AOC, where I am now anecdotally seeing in the comments and hearing from people, AOC sold out, by which they mean she's become a little pragmatic and understanding of how you gain power. AOC sold out. Bernie has gone to the dark side when he said, something relatively anodyne about Israel or something like that. I worry that if Bernie and AOC are now too far set to the middle and they've sold out or whatever, I don't know that anyone would suffice, and that scares me a little bit.
Yeah, I think there has to be an understanding of what politics is, and this idea that we're not in this to find our spiritual leader. We're not in this to find our significant other. We are not looking for perfect. Our politicians are vehicles to get us the closest to where we want to be, and we inherently have to be able to reach out to people that don't just satisfy the purity test that we've decided to impose, because it has to be inclusive, not exclusive. We lost the popular vote. We lost the electoral vote. And so our only job here is to be able to find people who are not already on board and bring them into the process. That's it. Like, that's what politics is. If you want perfect, go, find a partner, and that's where you'll find your perfection. Find a spiritual leader, and that's where you'll find your perspective. But that's not what politics is right now. Politics is finding people who are vehicles to get us into power so that we could do the most with what little time we have. And we can't be imposing purity tests. We can't be excluding people from the party who don't align perfectly with every single worldview that we have. We have to be willing to compromise, because, look, I would rather have somebody in office that I agree with 60 to 75% of the time, because the alternative to that is going to be somebody that I agree with 5 to 10% of the time. And so it just has to be a matter of common sense here. And I do hope that there's some sense, because I know that the infighting is going to occur once we get into a position where the 2028 primaries start to roll around, and we see the familiar infighting, and I just hope that people have a sense of what it is that we're doing here and what politics at its core is, because it's not about finding perfection, and we can't let perfect be the enemy of good. It is about finding somebody who's going to beat the person on the Republican side so that we can get into power, so that we can use what limited time we have in power to combat climate change and expand access to healthcare and stop the proliferation of guns in our schools and make sure that women have access to reproductive care and whatever it may be. But that's really the name of the game here. And I try to use, what platforms I have at any moment that I have them to kind of drive that message home, knowing full well that it may be in vain. But we have to, even if there's a few people every time I say it that understand, okay, like I get that this politician may not be perfect, but that's not what we're in pursuit of here. This is about getting power and exercising that power to help as many people as possible. And the only way that we actually get into power is if we're willing to find people who have the best chance of beating the Republicans so that we can actually exercise it.
One other thing I see in a lot of the comments from our audience is the people that didn't vote, and appealing to people that did not even feel as though the stakes were necessarily high enough or that their vote would play a role in making a difference and stayed home. And I think one of the interesting things there is one of the advantages with the MAGA approach is finding a scapegoat to blame is really effective. Fear-based campaigning is really effective at getting people off the sidelines. And if you think back to 2015, 2016, when Trump came down the golden escalator, as he likes to say, and there were people who weren't really voting at that point, but they kind of knew who Trump was. And you see Trump go, hey, I know why you've been struggling. You're not making as much money as you want to make, or you're finding it difficult to afford housing, or all these different things. The problem is, I'm simplifying, but it's immigrants from Mexico and China treating us unfairly on trade. And I'm going to deal with both of those things. It really sucks when you're trying to build a movement around reality, nuance, and truth. But that stuff is really effective at getting people to go, I never knew that if I could just vote, I could get a guy like Trump to fix this stuff. And we don't really know how to deal with that yet, I don't think.
Yeah, I think we have to be better at I've seen a few instances where people will come forward and say the reason that you can't afford to pay for groceries, the reason that you can't afford to pay for rent, the reason that everything feels so out of reach for you is not because of immigrants, right? And I think it's as simple as reminding people that we need an antidote to the Republican strategy, the demagoguery that we see from Trump. We need an antidote to that. And all too often, Democrats are not willing to just come out and refute the argument that they bring forward, which is like you're not doing well because there's an immigrant somewhere. You're not doing well because there's a brown or a black person somewhere, collecting unemployment or that's on Medicaid, as if these people who are like on food that you're not doing well because they're benefiting from their crumb in the pie. Because they're benefiting from that crumb means that somehow you're worse off. There is a scarcity mentality that Republicans bring forward. And I think that if we put forward the antidote to that, which is you are not bad off because somebody is making $7 an hour somewhere. You're not bad off because somebody else is able to receive food stamps or benefits from Medicaid. It's because our entire tax system is put in place to help one very small, specific subset of the population. And those folks are very often multimillionaires or billionaires. And so I think if we're better off if we get better at kind of understanding the antidote to the demagoguery being put forward by Republicans, hopefully we can stop that in our tracks. But I think a lot of what Trump did kind of caught everybody by surprise, left everybody flat-footed, and we haven't really figured out a way to wield boogeymen with the same potency or effectiveness as Republicans have, and they've been really good at it. And I think that hopefully this moment right now, where we are just seeing kind of all of that Republican depravity put into practice, where they're going after people. I mean, it's easy for them to say like, oh, the reason that you're not getting what you need is because all of these people are taking from you, and then you see these people getting rounded up by ICE by masked men. And they're just like working in a car wash somewhere or like picking our food or working on a construction site that will build our houses. And I think it puts like literally and figuratively puts a face to a name, and makes it more difficult for people across this country to think that like these are the big scary boogeymen that are making your life miserable. The people that are working in the fields, the people that are like standing outside of Home Depot, and I think that we have to take advantage of that tide turning, and show that, hey, maybe these aren't the big scary boogeymen that Republicans have made them out to be. Maybe the big scary boogeymen are, the billionaires that actually benefit from the policies that all of that demagoguery is actually distracting us from.
Brian, last thing I want to ask you about, kind of for my own edification in the last few minutes we have. I try to do all the things I can think of in order to be as effective as possible. So I do my videos and I do my podcast. If there's a new platform where maybe we can reach people, I get on the platform. Some people wrote to me and said, I have a lot of friends and family who they just don't listen to stuff, they read. So I wrote a book, and then we launched the Substack where we have written content. What about going to DC and interviewing people there? And think, well, we did that last week. I'm trying to do everything within my reasonable reach as an independent producer. Are there other sorts of engagements and things that we as independent producers can and potentially should be doing in order to increase our effectiveness, to get more of those non-voters voting, et cetera?
I think at this point now, and by the way, I should let everybody know that's in this Substack live, that one of the inspiring forces to get me involved in independent media and in YouTube was literally watching David. I mean, David has been part of my YouTube diet from day one. I watched him well before I had my own channel, and I still believe, and I call you every time, and after you do one of your interviews, especially with these right wingers, that there is literally nobody better in independent media, legacy media, that with these interviews than you. So you are, I think I don't want to understate the impact that you've had, because, had I not watched you, I very likely would not be doing what I'm doing right now. So I know that it often feels like we have to do so much more, because there is a sense, and I get it as well, of like, I feel like this is not sufficient. But I think at this point, I mean, you're on all the platforms. You're on YouTube. You're on all the vertical platforms. We're doing Substack Live right now. I think now this moment is about kind of paving the way, and I guess this lends itself to the point that I was just making, paving the way for a lot of other creators to get into this ecosystem. I know you and I have spoken about that at length, but I think we just need as many voices as possible, because really the problem is not that we, that you or I don't have a big enough platform to be able to reach people. It's just that the full breadth of the left-wing media ecosystem cannot compare to what they have on the right. And that if you're scrolling, eventually you're going to run out of left of center creators, and you're going to start getting fed right-wing content, just because of the pure number of people that are on there, all of the monetary incentivizations on the right to be able to do this kind of stuff, and the incubator programs that they have on the right as well. And so, I think, like, I don't want to understate like the impact that you continue to have just by doing what you're already doing, because if you weren't there, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. And I know that a lot of, and I know that, and I hope that a lot of people who are watching, who have, interest in doing content creation on the left, or even, even if it's just like a part-time thing, picking up your phone and saying how stuff can impact you, do it. I mean, watching people like David is why I'm doing it. I hope that folks who are watching this right now, if you have any interest in getting out there and making your voice part of this broad swath of people that we have on the left, that if you have any interest in doing it, that you do, because I think it can, make a real difference. But I think that's where our interest lies right now, is broadening the entire ecosystem, because, it's a numbers game at this point. So we need as many numbers as possible.
That's a good note to end on. And I'll end with the advice that I always give whenever I have a conversation with people who want to get started. And they go, oh, what lights do I get? And which camera? Do I need someone doing record videos starting today? Just start doing the content. All of the other stuff will follow. Just start doing the content. That's the best possible advice I think that we can really give. And
100%.
what else can you do?
Yeah,
You know?
100%. I mean, I am a perfectionist. I'm the most anal person that you'll find. I would normally, when I was first making my content, I was like, I can't do anything until I have the perfect script and the perfect background, the perfect camera, the perfect sound gear, the perfect lighting. And at the end of the day, people are forgiving on all of that stuff. Just say what you have to say, get out there. All of that stuff will come in time, and you'll get to the point where you have a nice background, nice camera, nice lights, but that stuff does not matter. And in fact, some of the most viral videos that I have, especially on vertical platforms, are me just standing in some nondescript place because I just had something I wanted to say and just said it.
You've been listening to a conversation with Brian Tyler Cohen. If you're a subscriber to my Substack, make sure to subscribe to Brian's. I would be flattered if Brian's followers subscribe to my Substack as well. Brian, so good to talk to you. I know you're a busy guy, so I'll let you go, but we'll keep the conversation going.
Awesome, David. Thank you so much for the time, and thank you everybody for tuning in and listening.